Hello, everybody, and welcome to DM Writer's Room, a show where we demystify the DMing process by coming up with, most of the time, monsters, magic items, and other fun things live. However, now that we are pretty late into our uh, 2 years now into running this, we occasionally take a little foray into other topics, like we are today. Today, we are having a return of a show that we did really quite recently in November, leading up to Thanksgiving. We did one page, one shot, 1 hour, where we tried to come up with a one-page adventure in 1 hour that we decided to make Thanksgiving themed. The result, which you can pick up on itch.io, was The Last Thanksgiving, a revenge-tinged tale of turkey misadventures as you play a band of turkeys trying to kill your farmer so that you can escape and end Thanksgiving forever, as far as you are concerned, because you only live on one farm, including, I do have to say, my favorite. The many classes of turkey were named after styles of cooking, and one of the popular ones is upside-down turkey, which we dubbed not a turkey. You are a dog or similar nearby animal that has been sort of co-opted into the fight. Today, however, I assume we will be doing a sort of less avian adventure. Unless that is what we end up doing, I don't know. I don't want to tell you all your business. So, I'm going to start... Do I start the timer after we pick? Or do I start the timer while we are voting?
Start the timer after we pick.
Okay,
Yeah, I
so
want one full hour.
Each going to present an idea for a one-page RPG, and then we are going to very quickly pick. If we have an easy selection, if all of us like one, we do that. Sometimes we random roll, and then we are going to try to get up and moving, and quick as we can, get a one-page RPG together. And I can say, with a pretty good rate of repeat, we get these out there. So maybe you'll be able to pick it up in the next few weeks, or the next month or so, as we get it up on itch.io. Spencer, I know you have an idea early that you are excited about. Michael has sort of a loose idea that's maybe still gestating a little bit. So let's go around the horn here. Spencer, you can go first. Michael will go second, and then I will go last.
All right, so mine is called Resonance. And Ethan, you'll know what I mean when I say this. It's a medium style RPG.
Okay.
So the goal, you and your compatriots are mech pilots, or like Zord pilots, I guess, if there's more than two people in one thing. And you are controlling this same mech, and you have to roll together to accomplish tasks. So my idea is like, you roll a d6, they roll a d6. And if you both roll the same number, you get a great effect. If you roll one away from each other, you succeed, and more than one away, you don't do anything at all, you fail. So the idea is you have to roll together in resonance for your mech to function properly, to do the thing you need to do. So that's mine.
Interesting. I'd be excited to see how bonuses would sort of make that easier. It's probably going to look a lot like crit ranges, where you can make it easier to do things together as you continue. I like it. All right, Michael, go ahead.
So my idea is called Suspense, and the fun piece of it is you're making basically bridges, suspension bridges, or it doesn't have to be suspension bridges. It could be something of the likes, and you do stuff by adding weight to your bridge.
The thought that step one of this game is to build a spaghetti bridge in your kitchen is so funny. I kind of dig that.
I was thinking, there's a bunch of different ways to do bridges. We've seen the toothpick bridges. We've seen you can do it with like napkins. You can do it with paper, and you just build your own bridge and whenever your thing collapses, your character dies.
Now, it is important for us to note, now, as much as if you are sitting there going like, that sounds a little... Well, our last game, the one that we did finish, was throwing eggs at each other to do your various abilities, so it is well within the bounds of reason. All right, I like it. So it is Suspense, a bridge building... A bridge building game. I like it. You can either add weight or add support. Pretty cool. All right. Cool. I'm just jotting down the ideas so that I don't forget what they are. All right. Mine, obviously, the loosest. I thought we were coming with like fun concepts, not fully wrought ideas with mechanics. You guys really gave me the business on this one. For me, my one-page RPG was rather than a Knight's Tale, a Sword's Tale, and my concept was just it's a one-page RPG where rather than following like a hero through their adventures, you follow a weapon through its adventures. So you are the sword, and you sort of follow it through the many stages of its adventure before it eventually ends up, entombed or rusted in some way. Hard to make that a game and not an improv exercise, but I think there is some bones there. I'd be curious to see how we do it. So, we have 3 ideas on the table. We have Resonance, a mech pilot game where you roll 2d6, or Monopoly die, one of our most popular options, to see if you can complete actions together. Suspense, a bridge building horror, maybe just suspenseful game. And then finally, a Sword's Tale following a blade through its long history. Do we have any preferences? I will say my favorite thus far is Resonance, because I think it has a challenging mechanic, and also there's not a lot of mech RPGs out there outside of a few popular ones, so it'd be fun to sort of play with that. That's an early inclination I have. Does anybody else have any major thoughts?
I also like mine.
Oh, do ya?
But what can I say,
Let's say, Spencer, if there was another one that you were going to do, what would it be? Call it out.
I'm worried about pigeonholing ourselves into the like really complex, convoluted style of one page, which Suspense will do. Because we already did the turkey egg throw. I want to do it because it's really interesting and fun, so I'm going to mark it down in our one-page RPG idea list.
Cool.
But my vote would be for mine or be for Ethan's.
All right.
Okay, then with my mild preference, it sounds like we have a choice, unless Michael has some very firm anti-stance in this case.
I'm out unless we do Ethan's.
Okay, so it sounds like we're gonna kick things off.
Yeah, I like Spencer's.
Resonance, a mech pilot RPG. All right, I'm gonna hit my button in 3, 2, 1. I actually have a timer now. Hugely exciting. Okay, so Resonance, a mech pilot RPG, and the core mechanic that we like to set up right at the beginning is if you want to do something, you and the other player roll a d6 together, and you need to roll the same number. Now, we talked about what if there are more players. My first thought, unfortunately, is the more players there are, the more exponentially difficult it becomes to get that match. So, I think we have 2 options before us. Option number 1, the game is played in 2s. You need 2, 4, 6, or 8 players. If you have 5, somebody is not playing. Which begs the question, do we have a GM?
I'm always for GM. I've never played a GM-less game.
Then it's 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. It's counting up on those odd numbers. You need that odd number. Option 2, we make allowances for you to have an uneven number of players, and in which case rolling the same number as each other would be a crit. And there's a variety of other possibilities to sort of help you understand what is going on. And that critical odds is the thing that gets down the more players you have. That's an early thought. It does still sort of de-incentivize large groups. What I think mainly it does is it encourages you to be like, we operate a mech, and those 2 players operate a mech, right? Yeah. Rather than be like, we are a 4-person Zord. Unless it's that whatever the core mechanic of our game is, right? I think about, like Lasers and Feelings, Honey Heist, where you have a slider that goes back and forth. In which case, having more people would make it so that when you crit, it is just like exponentially more exciting when it happens. If you have a full 5-person Voltron and you all roll a Yahtzee, then it is like ballistic when it happens.
I think I'm fine with Zorg as the primary and having it be like, it can be odds. You can have 9 players if you want. But the way to fix it in my mind would be you have to all roll. So if it's 2 people, you just roll. If it's 3 people, as long as the majority of you sync, or whatever you resonant each other, then it succeeds. If there's 9 of you and 6 of you roll within 1 of the other number, like you succeed. Something like that, you know? So it's the majority rules instead of everybody having to get it. But if everybody gets the number, then it is a critical success in some way and something insane happens. That's my initial thought.
Okay. All right. We are putting the cart before the horse here.
Yes.
As we are tended to do. So the game is called Resonance. It has a GM, which means there is a story, and it has players. And the default we want is for there to be one mech that the players control as a unit? Or do we like the idea, or is it just totally free choice? You can have multiples. The only rule is you cannot be by yourself.
I like the idea of there being one mech. I would picture it similar to like a spaceship at that point, where you're each doing something on this mech.
Okay, so it is, you are in the single thing, you are following a story of some kind because we have a sort of GM, but clearly they are in the kind of, I'm clearly drawing parallels to the sorts of stories where they line up a challenge, the players interact with that challenge, they line up another challenge, right? It's not like we are going to publish a monster manual for this. It's going to be a series of just sort of moving through to try to get to the next step, the next step, the next step. Now, when I... Go ahead.
The final goal is to drill through heaven.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
So when I think of mech shows, when I think of mech movies and mech RPGs, right, there are definitely some through lines that we are tapping into here, right? The power of friendship is right up at the top of the list. Clearly, we are doing something with that, with this sort of drift mechanic that we are working with. Immediately, I am also thinking of Pacific Rim, as one would expect, right? We have the sort of the drift, which I'll put in quotes here.
A key piece. You do have to drift speak.
You have to say it at the same time.
So,
No,
again,
it's not.
it is so important for us. I have to remind you
other.
all, that was in the home game. So, drift speaking. And the entire concept of this game, for the record, comes from our Theros home game before Spencer ran the streamed Theros game. If you want to go watch 165 episodes of us fighting against the gods in the world of Theros, by the way, we were in the world of Theros, and Spencer and Michael's characters used a spell and an Arcana check to turn into one big centaur, and spoke one word at a time back and forth and called themselves the Drift Horse, which is where a lot of this comes from. So, quickly I want to establish something. So I think of the drift, I think of what a critical means. So here's what I think the center of that is. If you roll the same die, you just get to describe what you do. If you roll the same number, you get to describe exactly what you do, and that's what happens, right? It's a crit, it's perfect. Nothing goes wrong at all. The odds of doing that are not particularly high, although, funnily enough, it is higher, I think, than rolling like a 12, because it is you have more opportunities to do the same thing. So let's jot down on a perfect success, which is matched die, you enter the drift. When you are in the drift, you get to just describe your next action and exactly how you perfectly pull it off in your mech. Your players just get to say what happens, and that's what happens. So then my question is, what is the step down from being in the drift? My first inclination is you are within one number, up or down. So one of you rolls a 5, and if the other one rolls a 4 or a 6, then you probably, what is it, like you succeed, but there is some minor issue, right? You succeed, but it's not exactly what you wanted. There is some degree of kind of reprisal there, so I'll say within 1. Success, which is not the same thing as entering, bump, the drift. Let me get out another die so that I can start to think out a little bit what the statistical, right? So that means somebody gets a 6, right? And so that means they would succeed if they got a 5 or a 4. 5, 4, 3, blah, 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 blah. No, wait. So 6. So rolling a 6 is actually kind of a bad result. right? A 6
Yeah.
can
Just
only
one up
line
or one
up.
down. Or it
Hmm.
would be 1 and 6. You
Oh, so
know,
looped.
aces and 2 style.
Let's make that choice right now because we only have so much time to do this. So do you like the idea better that rolling a 6 is a bad thing? You're like, we need to roll a 6 or a 5. Our window of victory is tight. Or does it loop back around and a 6 and a 1 count? Like, I don't know.
I think that it's more fun to be 6 is bad. 6 is
Yeah.
bad, 1 is bad. You want to get in the middle.
Okay.
Because you're like on the extreme ends of the human psyche if you're at a 6 or the other person's at a 1.
I
You
think
don't wanna
that
win.
if you do drift on 6, you get something good though.
Oh, yeah. There could be an additional bonus roll where it's like drift 6 is you know, an
You
abundant success.
you get a bonus die for your next roll.
Oh, you get a bonus
Oh,
on the
you
next.
get a third
plus
die
forward.
and you can take that result. Perfect. Okay. And then
That's cool.
perfect 6 above even the drift.
Resonance.
There you
Perfect
go,
6 or
resonance.
1. You gain resonance. I love it. Okay, super cool. Now,
So
then-
I was thinking perfect 1. It could be it's like dissonance into resonance where you're stopping something really bad.
now, as
you
that is
prevent a
now, that means
catastrophe.
that we have about 50-50 odds of success versus failure, assuming we do nothing to add bonuses, which I
Yeah.
think is actually fine. And then I am going, so most of the time, when you roll poorly, so you roll outside of 1, that is a failure. You describe the action that you want to do, you roll the dice, you're outside of that 1, you fail. And that's all that happens. It just doesn't work. So right now we're kind of dealing with something like Powered by the Apocalypse, right? So you and the other members of the mech, for those of you just tuning in, we're making a 1-page mech RPG in an hour and we have 50 minutes left. You and the other 2 people in your mech each have a d6 in your hand. You all quickly concert with each other and you're like, all right, we're going to try to tackle that Gundam into the volcano and then lift off with our rocket before we fall in. You all roll.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you all roll a 6, everybody yells and screams, it's a perfect drift. If you all roll a 4, it's the drift. It goes exactly how you want it. If you roll a 4, a 5, and a 3, then you are all within that sort of, thing. That's the only thing we need to figure out. If you have 3 players, right, somebody might fall outside. Is all that it matters that you can chain it like that? I think that might be the most fun option. And then if you roll totally terrible, if you roll a 6 and a 3 and a 2, you fail. The action doesn't work. I am then going to add, this is the easiest with a 2-player setup. We'll have to figure out what it would be with 3 or 4. If you roll opposite ends, if you roll a 6 and a 1, that is a cataclysm. It goes as bad as it possibly can. You are totally out of the drift.
Yeah, I was thinking like out at war with each other, that
So let's
dissonance or
really quickly try to solve this problem. We talked about it at the beginning, and we're immediately running into it again, which means we immediately identified something that was going to be a problem, right? 2 players are controlling one of these robots. They roll their 2d6. They get, let's see, I'll do it in front of me, a 6 and a 2. They fail. When we add a 3rd player and they roll the die, if we get a 6, a 5, and a 4, have we succeeded? Because 6 and 4 are outside.
I say no. I think that there should be a lead roller on each action that the party elects, the main driver of whatever action is about to be taken.
And it can alternate around the field
Yeah,
as we
it can
play.
jump around, whatever. It can fully do a clockwise rotation. That's fine.
Or we can say one of the party roles is the captain, and they basically they would roll first to set the number, and then the other people
everybody
roll
else will go.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have this kind of captain role that takes care of that problem. Great. Now, something that we are going to run into in the next few minutes, having the role of captain and having the setup is great. It continues to make it so that the game gets less fun the more friends you have. And that's bad game design. If you manage to get 5 friends together for game night, I don't want our game to get less fun the more friends you get together. That is not a good move. So at some point we're going to need to find a way to balance that out a little bit. Something to make that not such a huge downside. Because right now, every time you add a player, your odds of success go down between 15 and 30% when you add another player. So that is a little bit of a tough stat there. Okay. So it sounds like our GM is basically just describing what happens, setting the scenario, and then our mech, our Zord, work together to describe how they react. I think that's fine. We don't need to sort of mechanize what the keeper, GM, whatever they are, what they do too much. So my next logical follow-up is, do we want there to be roles in this game? A lot of one-page RPGs do have roles where you sort of pick the loose character concept that you are working with. Lots of RPGs don't. Lots of one-page RPGs basically just let you describe, and then you are, one of sort of a random group here. I always like to get to build my little character and pick things off a couple of charts and put together my cocky pilot with a cigarette in the leg with his booster button. That is kind of always where I lean, but it's certainly very popular to make games where that is not always the case. What early ideas do we have? Do we have a direction that we want to lean in? I have a pretty huge bias here.
I was gonna say, if we want to do roles, I'm the right hand, I'm the left hand. If you're just two people, I'm the upper body, I'm the lower body, or I'm the head.
And I was gonna argue for sort of the flip side, which is the ship concept, where there's the captain, there's a gunner, there's an engineer, there's a pilot, and each of those. So what I was gonna say for each of them was like, if you can add in something from your character archetype into the action you're taking, then you get some sort of bonus, a +1 to, or an additional 1 to your up and down. So like the gunner, if you can include shooting your rifles at the enemy, you get a +1 swing up or down to match the captain's roll. You know what I mean? Am I explaining that well enough?
Yeah, I think you are explaining it well enough. I'm going to offer my alternative. If we were going to pick roles, I would pick the 5-man band, which is the leader, the foil, the heart, the brain, the brawn. That's what, a lot of these things do. That is what Power Rangers uses, the 5-man band. Voltron uses the 5-man band. It's a really popular way to get 5 dudes in the same robot. Okay, so we have ship positions, we have sort of trope positions, and then we have literal positions. Do we have an early inclination, or do we want to roll to determine which one we go with?
I feel like we could probably combine the 5-man band with Michael's location discernment. So you have run through the list again. You have
the leader, the foil.
The leader would be the head.
Yeah, the leader, the foil, the heart, the brain, the brawn. So,
okay,
leader would be head, heart would be chest. I know you would think brain would be head, but I think you're actually correct. I think it makes more sense as the captain character. The
heart would be like, yeah, go ahead.
Foil would be one of the arms, brawn would be one of the legs, and that leaves us with one more character, and we have a leg and an arm left. So actually, what we could do is sort of fuse head and chest and have the leader be just sort of in the pilot's chair. And then brain and heart just need to be sorted into some other spots.
Yeah. And heart, you could do shields of some sort. It still mixes up. Oh, we got a comment from James. What if this was played with a deck of cards? Everyone is playing blackjack against the house, the DM. The number of successes versus the DM's hand determines the player's outcome. Solid mechanic. And I would love to use blackjack in one of our one pages.
It would be. We would just need to find a way to make the odds of winning against the house a little better. That's all we would need to do, which wouldn't be that hard. We would just need to make it a little bit simpler for them to do, which we would achieve through bonuses, through people having like pluses and minuses. It's really, honestly, fairly similar to the 2d6 system that we have, right? You get the 21, perfect result. You get above but not bust, great. You bust, bad. Kind of where we are at.
The idea of team-based blackjack is very fun, though. I am going to write that down in our list here.
Plugging away at the next Balataro over here, whatever that game's called.
Such a good game.
Okay, so leader is going to be head/chest. So heart to me would be arm, and then we'll have brain be leg. There's something science-y about, that foot that is on the ground. I think is one of our better options there. Okay. And then Spencer, yours was sort of the ship crew as it was, which I think we can also do with pretty little effort here, right? The captain is the leader, is the sort of main piece of the ship. Obviously, right? The gunner, I think, is our foil.
Mm-hmm.
The heart is our medic. The brain is our, I don't know what to call this person, our science officer, our operations, our tech. Wait, we're in a robot. They're a tech, right? They're sort of our tech skill tree. And then our brawn would be captain, gunner, medic, tech. It would be, I don't know, the person that boards the other ship. I don't quite know what to call them.
The pirate, the rogue.
I mean, I think unfortunately it stays the muscle.
Yeah, it's like demo, maybe. Demolition.
Yeah, okay.
Something like that.
Cool.
Let them be in the sword. Just
whipped around.
swung around.
And you show up to work in the morning and they just hand you a couple of bottles of anti air sickness pills. They're like, just get loaded, brother. That's all you can do. Okay, cool. So we have 5 roles and we don't need to fill all of them. And that's the benefit of having these sort of fallbacks, right? You can be the captain and the gunner if you don't have the full crew to be head, arm, leg. It's not like then you are just a head and an arm running across a battlefield.
Although that'd be fun too.
It would be funny for sure. Okay, so that is some loose idea of how the roles work, some idea of how the roles ROLL works. Whoops. Now we need to move on a little bit to what it feels like to play the game. We have the mechanic down, right? So if it was the 3 of us playing, we would describe what one of us, whoever was sort of taking the lead, would describe what they want to do, or we decide as a group what it is that we want to do.
I think decide as a group. I think the idea of bullet time happening while everybody's trying to resonate with each other in this mech, speaking sort of mind to mind, is what's going on here.
I have to say, it would be very fun to have some of the actions to be able to get a benefit by doing like a flashback. The screen goes black and white. You're like, do you remember? And it's you all in the academy, and it's like we do a little episode. I think it's pretty solid.
If we're trying to go with the whole drifting and bullet time stuff, I think we do need a timer, like a 30 seconds to decide.
Sure.
Yeah. I could see that.
30 seconds a minute, 45
30
seconds, whatever the time is.
30 seconds is too short. Yeah, but especially, it would be, if there's 2 of you, I think it would be like, what it probably is 30 seconds for 2 players, and then add 30 more seconds for each additional player. What I like about that is without that rule, players will describe what they might want to do. If you would like to tune into this problem, watch our last episode of The Party Makes Things Worse. If you get more than 3 players in a room together and ask them what they want to do next, they are going to spend 35 minutes coming up with the answer to that question. So that is an issue that you need to nip quite early. So I actually do like the idea of setting a timer. It's just, if I'm thinking about the flow of this game, most of play is deciding and describing an action by the vast majority. This isn't, if this was Dungeons and Dragons, then yeah, limiting your decision time to 60 seconds would make sense, because you're going to go through your turn, you're going to move on to the next person, then that person, and you're going to have a lot of time to think about what you want to do. In this case, it's all right, everybody decide, roll. Everybody decide, roll. And if that's 60 seconds, this game's going to move at a pace a little too fast to be fun. It is going to be like a panic the entire time.
With the bullet time, things are still happening in the background. I could see that 2-player 30 seconds, 3-player 60 seconds, minute and a half, etc. When you go beyond that time, the keeper, whatever we want to call them, just gets to make a move against you as well. It's one demerit, essentially, something they can use, because you went beyond that time. And it can be like every 30-second additional that you go beyond your allotted time is an additional move, an additional move, an additional move. So you want to resonate and be quick and punchy so you don't get those things done against you.
Sure. I like the idea that something bad happens if you take too long. right? Because it lets players take a little too long. I think having it be compounding like that maybe isn't the best. I think that will lead
Fair.
to whenever you are a little game design thing for those watching, right? This is we're trying to educate. There's something in all RPGs called a death spiral. It's a common problem in video games and normal things, which is when one thing goes wrong, other things start to go wrong. And so when you have something where it's like every 30 seconds, every minute that they go past, you add, it's a death spiral. It's like one thing's wrong, they panic, two things are wrong. Now they're panicking about the thing that hasn't even happened yet. Three things go wrong. Now they've given up. And by the time you hit like 5, they are going to stop playing and go play Risk. And that your game night is going to take a pretty hard pivot. If I had to say, positive tends to go better than negative. What if you can come up with your action in under 30 seconds, no matter how many players you have, your range of success goes up by 1. So instead of being within 1 of each other, if you can decide within 30 seconds, it only needs to be within 2. Or it's another way to get that advantage die that we were talking about. The DM also rolls a die.
I think I like the advantage die better. I'm worried that saying within 30 seconds, they would just say, "Captain, go," and the captain just says, "We launch." And then no, I like the idea of the conversation more than I like anything else here, where they're chatting it out. I think that's fun. It's a fun aspect of the game, is all working together to do something. So I don't want to make it too good.
So keep the longer time frame. Get the advantage die if you stay within the time frame.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Within the time frame or within the faster time frame?
It sounds like from what Spencer just said, the longer time frame, because you don't want to limit those conversations. Is that right?
Yeah, I think I would prefer that.
Okay.
All right.
So 230, and then it's 360, 490, and then I do think we need to put a soft limit on this game where we're like, we do not recommend more than 5 players.
Yeah, I don't think more than 5. Most games stop working at more than 5 players.
Dungeons and
so
Dragons
I think that
does.
we can kind of cut it down.
5
I'm
players
the
in one
second
DM. Left arm.
I'm the blade. I'm the shoe. Do we think 5 players and a keeper, or do we think 4 players and a keeper? 5 and a keeper, right?
Yeah.
I think 5 and a keeper is the limit, and anything less than that we're perfectly happy with.
Cool.
Okay, cool. So that gives us some kind of frame, and then you get a bonus if you can make the choice in time. Bonus in time. Great. So, congratulations. We are halfway through our time, and we currently have a playable 1-page RPG. It's just, it is strictly and completely luck-based right now. So now we need to go down into everybody strap on your headlamps. We need to go down into the game mechanics minds and start figuring out how we increase our odds of success. Michael, what's up?
I was gonna ask, is there a fail state for this game?
Is there like health?
There
and
tends
stuff
to
like
be.
that?
So yeah, this is another good choice that we can make. Hence the mechanics minds. It's deciding, is there a narrative fail state, or is there a mechanical fail state? Right? Do you fail when it becomes clear that the story is not going to go your way? Right? You fail a bunch of times in a row, and clearly the villain gets away. Or do we want to tie it to something like health, armor, mech stability, things like that, right? Because I would say... Sorry, got an itch on my nose. So for instance, this is a hot take, like popular games like Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder don't have a hard fail state. We all think they do, because we're like, well, my character can die, and it's like, yeah, but your goal isn't stay alive. Your goal is fight the bad guy, is do the quest. So the fail state is the bad guy gets away, their plan goes off, and those things are not mechanical. The GM just sort of keeps going until they see an opening where it's clear that the person would escape, and then you have failed.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, do we want to only have that narrative failure mechanic, and maybe we'll come up with some kind of health armor system? Or is it, there is a system, and when you pass a threshold, you have failed, and the game is over?
I I think narrative, that'd be my vote. I think having just a narrative system of play, it happens a lot more in one-page RPGs than the opposite, where it is really there's fail states involved. So I like the idea of going with it being totally narrative. Success and failure is dependent on the vibes, because you're just having a fun conversation game.
Okay. Success failure is narrative. I tend to find most games go in that direction anyways. And unless you are playing sort of a horror game where you want there to be a death spiral, right? Dread has a death spiral because it's supposed to. It gets easier, things get worse as you continue to play. The Last Thanksgiving has a death spiral. As you run out of allies, your ability to come up with ways to help each other reduce, your ability to use each other's abilities to help reduce, and things get worse. This game's going to have a little bit less of that, which I think makes sense. Okay. Now, we have our roles, and I think that is clearly what we should take a look at next. We have the captain, the gunner, the medic, the tech, and the muscle. Or, oh wait, they should all start with different letters, the brawler. Here's a huge gripe I have with game design. Name the classes different with different starting letters so that I can jot down the first letters, please. It's like when a bunch of characters give themselves the same first initial, and I'm like, hey, could you stop?
Yeah.
Could you stop? So that when I'm writing the initiative, I don't need to write your big, long
One
character
extra.
name. I get to write B, C, V, R, and M, please.
Yeah.
Okay, so mechanically we are affecting 2d6 or 2 to 5d6, which is a pretty simple thing to interact with. I'll get out a couple more d6 so that I could help myself sort of visualize here a little bit. Does anybody have any early ideas that they are attached to with how these different roles can sort of support each other and help them succeed in the kind of longer mission that is before them, right? Clearly, we have some more aggressive and some more passive roles here. Our gunner is probably somebody that is going to be taking daring actions, right? They are the foil. They are the one that challenges the captain's orders. The captain is going to benefit from getting people to work together because they are clearly the person that is just trying to get the squad to, think like a team or whatever. And the muscle probably mostly gains benefits by charging into problems head on. The brain benefits by making plans. And I think that sets up a little bit of tension, which, as long as you have a responsible group of players, right, shouldn't be too much of a problem.
My initial thought was, and I think I already said it a little bit, was that utilizing your background, profession, location on the mech, etc., in the narrative for this round gives you a bonus of +1 swing. So up one more, down one more. So like if you're the gunner and you use the guns, you get the 1 swing. And if you can use the guns and use like the captain's ability to rouse the rest of the team, you get another 1 for the captain, 1 for the gunner. Each of them gets an additional 1 swing on their die. You know what I mean?
I do. It's a little. It's a little complex, but not bad. I'm looking at. So the first thing I have noticed is I'm looking at the number of dice in my hand, and I am thinking about the odds that they all roll within 1 of each other. And so I definitely like the idea of there being a little bit of swing up and down there, right? So, okay, each of these people is going to have a narrative thing that they're going for. I like that. I said that, and then I rolled a success. I rolled 6, 4. I rolled 6, 6, 4, 4, 5. Hilarious. So, okay, so whoever it is that is taking the lead is what you said. And so that means that we are moving away from the thought that the captain rolls that first die and sets what they do each turn.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it just that the captain gets to roll that die to set that number?
I think the captain just gets to roll that die to set the number, and then everybody else rolls.
Okay, so on the brawler's turn, the brawler says, all right, great. I am going to take the big laser cannon. I'm going to point it at this thing, and we're going to, fire 3 shots. Everybody says, great. So the brawler goes from having a success range of 1 to a success range of 2. Then the
Yes.
captain rolls. The captain gets a 6, which is terrible.
Yep.
Everybody else needs to roll a 5 to succeed. The brawler alone can roll a 5 or a 4. That makes everybody's odds of succeeding very bad. I did a little play roll over here. I failed. Let's say the captain does the same thing. They roll a 3 this time. Everybody else succeeds on a 2 or a 4. And I immediately notice a small problem. The brawler now succeeds on a 5, 4, 2, or 1. Or they crit on the 3. So their only opportunity to fail is now a 6. So, well, actually, maybe that's fine, right? Because the whole group needs to succeed. If I do a test roll on that, I did succeed. I got a 2, 2, 5, 4. Interesting. I wonder if maybe the odds of winning this are not as low as I think they are. The next roll is a failure.
That's 2 failures, 3 successes.
The next roll is a success. Oh, no, wait. The next roll is a failure. Okay, so the odds of failing are
3-3.
fairly high.
Yeah, this is a 50-50 so far.
A little, statistically, just a little bit below. It's like 35, which isn't a huge deal. Okay, so that is I like that as our base mechanic. If you play smart and you tie it to your abilities, you have the greatest chance of succeeding, and then it's can we all work together to make it happen. And I think that's fine. But that is a sort of passive. Everybody does that, right? That is a challenge for role play. If you can use your abilities, the ones that would be the strongest, your odds of success go up. I think that makes perfect sense. And is an easy way to make things easier right at the ground level. So now, I'm going to go down the list, and we need to figure out what abilities these characters have to make their odds of success greater or lesser, right? Because most people aren't going to be playing with 5 people. That's a lot. Sorry, 6 people.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
See, I think that advantage die is going to do a lot of the work here. Interesting. Okay. So, we got 25 minutes on the clock. We need to move at a pretty good clip here. The captain. What do they benefit from, and how do they execute it, right? The themes of the leader character is getting people to work together. It is establishing teamwork and trust across the table. How does the character of the captain, how does the role of the captain lend itself to that?
I could see the captain not gaining a benefit themselves, but giving a benefit to another player. So whoever rolled the lowest, the captain can give them a reroll, something like that.
Perfect.
Because it's never about the captain; it's about the crew.
They have a mulligan ability that is called Inspiring Speech. I believe in you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
James Hurst chimes in with, what about a synergy bonus for players' actions whose roles match the captain's successful roll? Yeah, so I think I like that as kind of an expansion of the drift, right? The perfect 6, which is now that we've added a lot more characters, I was imagining this is 2-player John here. I was imagining this is something that only 2 players do. So our captain rolls, and they roll that. I keep rolling a 6 on this die, which is a bad number to roll. I rolled another 6. This die might need a little... There's the 3.
Gotta give it a test.
Check with the water.
They roll a 3, and then the rest of everybody else rolls. I'm going to see. Somebody else rolls a 3. And then we get a couple of others there. All right, so my question then is, so this actually was almost a success. The furthest out was a 5. They get to re-roll because if it's the captain's turn, right, they get to use mulligan. They roll again. They rolled a 6. Terrible. Okay, so now my question is, the drift is everybody rolling the same number. At 5, that's not going to happen realistically, but at 3, that'll happen on occasion. What is the benefit, as James has brought up, if the captain rolls a 3, and then the next person that rolls a 3? What is the benefit for, like, one person matching? Does it count as 2 successes? Does it negate a failure? Does it offer a bonus? Does it... What happens there?
we've already.
Thank you, James, for noticing a mechanical mishap in our game.
Maybe a second person gets to include their thing in the next roll.
If you roll the same number as the captain, you get to use your
You get to do
action
it.
in addition to whatever action is supposed to happen. Okay.
Okay, I like that.
So the captain has this mulligan, so if it is the captain's turn, they get to just tell whoever rolled the furthest to re-roll, and they get to do that. On anybody's turn, if you roll the same number as the captain, you are like locked in with the main system, and you get to use your ability off of your turn. Great.
Hell yeah.
It's okay if our game has a couple of bells and whistles. You know, that's not too bad.
Yeah, that's not bad though.
So that's the captain's main ability. Great. What is the gunner's main ability? The gunner is the foil. They are, one of the arms of the mech. They are this sort of combat-focused character. Not combat-focused. They're the Lancer is the other name for this character.
Yeah.
They let anyone that rolls like a 1 re-roll.
See, too similar to the captain. The captain's got the reroll, so everybody else needs to have something else going on. Let's get some Lancers from fiction up in the space to help us visualize, right? Han Solo is a Lancer. He plays foil to everybody's force nonsense.
They make 6s wilds.
Oh, 6 into the swing into the 1. So it's like 6 and 1. Oh wait,
No,
it's
like
totally wild.
Yeah, they make if you roll a say
on the gunner's
they
turn,
get,
6s are wild cards.
yes.
That's cool. Yeah, because the whole Maverick ability, I think that lines up really well. That's cool.
Duke's Wild. I like it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
This is a fun way also to make each player's turn a little different from one another, and I think that that's pretty huge. Okay, the medic.
The medic. It's hard now that we've removed, actual damage, HP, things like that from this setup.
We can still add a damage mechanic. It's just that's not the fail state, right?
Yeah.
We haven't decided to tie those things too closely together.
Yeah. Otherwise, good.
I was thinking on medics. It could be 1 below majority has to succeed.
Oh, so instead of if there's 4 players or 5 players, because it's got to be odds, right? If 2 succeeded, it still works because it's 1 below majority.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Let's skip the medic and come back.
Okay.
All right, so here's what we've covered so far. And this might mean we might need to introduce a health mechanic to make all these roles more distinct from one another. Sorry, my chair is so uncomfortable. I had a nicer office chair, and it broke a little bit, and now I'm in the shitty office chair that I replaced that one with. And I've got to go get a new chair. This thing is killing me. Okay. So the issue with this is just that we have a strictly dice mechanic, and our odds of failure are high, so it is good for everybody to have something they can do. The captain has that mulligan. They make the person that is furthest from the center reroll. The gunner makes all 6s a wild card. That is objectively better than the captain's ability, but I don't actually think that really matters too much, because the captain, to be perfectly frank, gets to roll dice every round, and I think that's the other benefit the captain gets. They just get to always roll dice, and that's just fun. It's always fun to be the person that gets to roll that first die. We have left the medic, the tech, and the brawler. If our captain is increasing our odds of success by helping our weakest member, makes sense. The gunner is helping us succeed by exploiting something, by turning those 6s into something better. I think that's great. And then we have the medic, the tech, and the brawler. So trying to lean in that direction of like, what does it seem like? How can we make rolling numbers feel like it ties to that roll in some way? I immediately want the brawler to be able to like brute force a victory. and I want the tech tree to be able to break the game in some way. So my first thought is that the tech person gets that 6-1 swing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They get to step a little bit outside the number rules of the game.
Mhm.
They get to make that 6-1 a success, which increases your odds of success in this game by a lot. It doesn't seem like it does, but it adds an entirely new 2 sets, basically, of successful numbers, depending on what is rolled, especially because somebody's range is going to be wider, assuming they aren't playing like a goofball. I like the idea that the brawler can just push through and force a success where there shouldn't be one. So I think my first inclination is the brawler can buy a victory by imposing disadvantage next round.
That's so fucked up.
Is that the brawler can say, we succeed, but
Mhm.
next round, like, somebody needs to re-roll. I'm not quite sure what that looks like. It's hard to take a dice out.
Disadvantage.
What I was thinking for the brawler would be akin to never stop blowing up. So you succeed, but then you'd have to have like D4s and then a coin to flip for everybody. So I'm not sure how it exactly work. But you succeed once, and then you get to take another immediate action. It succeeds again because there's a lower difference in number swing, and then you succeed again. You get 3 just rip through actions.
I think that's
for-
it. If the brawler gets no help to win, but if they do, they get to immediately take another action instantly,
Yeah.
and like they can just daisy chain those if all goes well.
Mhm.
All right. I like that. Working on the disadvantage. I think it'd be your next go around. You have to match. It's
That's
just
for what?
You have to roll
the-
Yahtzee. That's brutal.
Well, it doesn't have to be
Ooh.
Yahtzee. It just the person that got advantage on this one, the
Oh,
next one.
Their success range goes down by 1.
Yeah.
Cool. That's pretty cool. Because it's hard
Oh.
being perfectly synced with your teammates all the time. You
Uh,
know, it would make sense to lose.
If we want to bring the difficulty down, there's a very simple solution. You just need the majority of players to be drifting.
Yeah, and that was one of the original pitches I had, but then I was
I
like,
thought
I'm
that's what
worried.
we were doing.
I thought it was everybody needs to be within the success window. All of the dice need to be
Oh,
within one
okay.
number up and
I
down.
was going off of gotcha. Okay.
Maybe it's a difficulty choice. Maybe you get to choose. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Okay, the brawler chaining successes. I like that, but that means I am for sure gonna need to add something where the GM gets to take turns. So we do need some kind of health mechanic, because for the chain to be a good thing means that the benefit is they don't get to take a turn between us doing actions to succeed.
Mm-hmm. And I think that we still don't need to necessarily add the health mechanic in. It's just when the party takes an action, the keeper takes an action. Party takes an action, keeper takes an action. And it's not versus their health. It's just things happening. The other mech attacks, the ceiling collapses, something explodes. Not for harm, just for narrative purposes.
I'm totally down. I think if we want that to be, it might be worth our time to mechanize that. It might be worth the time for
Sure.
the keeper to get to roll, but they always roll 3 or something. Like they have an objectively easier roll to make. They roll 3d6 and they have
Yeah.
their own like variants. But that's if we want to add strain or health or whatever it is.
Yeah, or something along those lines.
We'll figure that out. It looks like we'll have the time. We have 13 minutes left.
Wow.
13 minutes and 50 seconds. We're all good. The medic. So I think we've done a pretty good job of inspiring these abilities off of these characters. The brawler can chain successes. The tech gets to basically buy an extra way to win. The captain can force that reroll, which is a great ability. And the gunner has an ability that is either incredibly useful or not useful at all, which is that sixes are wild cards, right? Everybody could just not roll a 6, and then that ability is useless. Whereas the captain's ability, which seems like the weakest, is always useful no matter what. Whereas the tech and the gunner's abilities, it's like, in the right situation, this is useful, but not always. Now the medic. So quickly I'm thinking the medic, the heart, they can pull you out of danger, right? Not so much make you succeed as prevent the worst possible result. So
yeah, on their turn, there's no catastrophic failures, something like that.
So we have a couple of options, right? Number one is on their turn, if you get that 6 and a 1, it doesn't matter. Like it does not affect the game at all. That would tell me that no matter what, if a 6 and a 1 come up, it is a catastrophe. Yikes.
Rough.
Disrupted by the tech person getting to treat that. Oh, so that would be the benefit of the tech person. A catastrophe becomes a success if the tech person is, the one at the helm. So I think that makes some degree of sense.
Cool.
That makes me wonder if maybe that should switch to the medic. Does the medic get rid of the total failure in that way? And we have to come up with something new for the tech tree?
I was thinking for the medic, it just the furthest person away brings it one closer.
Too similar to the captain.
Instead of a
It's not a reroll, it's just a 1 die slide.
My thought was for medics, the idea of a medic bringing everybody back to their feet long enough for an additional move and then imposing disadvantage afterwards is cool. So it's like, I just don't know how it would work. I don't know the functionality of it. But like the adrenaline shot in the heart to keep going, and then that collapses. The other one is repositioning of some sort. The medic gets everybody functional in a way so they can reposition to a better spot on the battlefield. I don't know.
But repositioning mattering means we have a battle map.
It doesn't, yeah.
Yeah, we're taking a step outside the range. And I do think, unfortunately, it is a little too similar to have that +1 bump. If we wanted to move the disadvantage for a success, that might make sense, right? The medic prioritizes mitigating damage over victory. But it will almost always result in sort of a more difficult turn. What it could be is just the medic can do exactly what you just said, right? The medic turns a failure into a success, but they need to match to succeed. The medic takes that burn. On the next turn, they need to match to succeed because they are busy.
Oh, so it's going to be the medic?
That's what I'm thinking. So the medic, right, they say this failure is a success instead.
Mm-hmm.
But that would only be on their own turn. Does that matter? Are we mad at that?
I think I still think it'd be cool to call it battle fatigue. The person gets to succeed this one, and the next one, that person that you made succeed has to drift on the next.
Okay, I like that. I like the succeed disadvantage. Disadvantage, and that means it's -1 spread. I think that's great. So now my question here, and this is the big one. We have a little odd interaction that we need to solve. Make sure you say your rules out loud when you're coming up with stuff. We have 9 minutes left. All of these people have abilities. Do those abilities only go off on their own turns? That's my question.
I was wondering if it could be free-for-all. One of these abilities can go off each round around. So you've got 3 players as a 3-person round. The medic can do it whenever. The gunner can do it whenever. But the party has to agree that it's their ability that's going to go off. Then you do it. And you can't use it again until the round ends. And it gets to the next round.
But so you could dump them all on one round.
Yeah, I think that would be fun. And then you're just stuck doing flat rolls.
The only other thing I was thinking is it warps a little bit. It takes a little away from the captain. We're round robining it, and whoever's ability is being used on this one, that's the person that everyone has to try and match.
Oh, instead of having it on the captain.
Not compatible with the thought that you could use multiple abilities on the same round if you desperately wanted to succeed. That is my only gripe. You can't have 3 people sort of roll that number. So let's take a look at what the mechanic was as it existed. We've got 8 minutes on the board. We're doing pretty good. We're almost there. So it is the gunner's turn to choose what they want to do. The gunner says, I want to fly up in the air and I want to shoot the mountain above them and make an avalanche fall on them and get their mech stuck in the snow. That's what we're doing this turn. The keeper's like, great, you used the gun to do it. It seems like a crazy Lancer thing to do.
You swing.
They get 2 swing. The captain rolls first. He gets a 2. Great. Not a 1 or a 6. And then everybody stops for a second and they go, okay, we've won a couple of things. We have him on his last legs. What do we want to do here? And the gunner says, it's my turn. I'm doing it. 6s count as... Specifically, the gunner's like, it's a 2. That's far as hell from a 6. I want 6s to be wild
6
cards.
are wild.
I'm going to use mine. Everybody's like, great. They're like, all right, I think he's on his last legs. Tech Tree's like, I'm not going to bother because you used yours, and ours don't really work that well together. And the medic goes, I think this might finish it. I'm going to burn mine and take the disadvantage. They go, great. They all roll, and we get 1 wild card, a 1, a 5, and a 4. Oh, so that's cool. The medics is the only one that's a reaction. So they get the 6, and they're like, great, they get the 1, and then the 5 and the 4 come up. Now we have a moment. If our game is majority wins, this is a success. It's a 1, a 2, and a 6, and then a 5 and a 4, so it is barely a victory. If it is everybody needs to match, then it's we still fucked it up, and the medic goes, no we didn't, and you stick the dice together, and the next time you roll, the medic's odds of succeeding go down even further, which brings the party's odds of succeeding way down.
Yeah. I think I like the idea of everybody having to match. We will have to play test this for sure to see if it's manageable.
So as we have it now, everybody has 1 additional ability. These games are going to move very fast. We don't have any kind of health or tech mechanic. We have 6 minutes on the clock. This is the moment where if we wanted to think about damage and health, we would. We don't have the time, so we're not going to add it to the game. So my question is, what do we call the Game Master, and what does the Game Master do on their turn? A perfectly valid answer is nothing. They describe the enemy's movements, and they respond to whether you succeeded or failed, a la Monster of the Week or Powered by the Apocalypse. Or we could try to figure some way for the whatever they are to also roll dice.
I just have one thing. Ian was curious about something. He's asking about our podcast. He's asking our podcasts if we do any podcast recordings. We do
I need you
for
to
D&D.
Ian, you've hit a nerve. We've been trying to figure out how to get all our audio recorded right to make it audio only. No jokes since we started.
We do video podcasts.
Yeah, so
yes, we do video podcasts.
We're on YouTube and Twitch right now. YouTube, unfortunately, means without YouTube Premium, you're just going to have to set it in the passenger seat of your car, which is what I have had to do before. We have only recently gotten everybody up to the tech level where hopefully at some point soon we can kind of branch out and get recordings from everybody we can stick together. That is a tentative plan. We all have jobs. But no, check us out on YouTube and Twitch. In the interim, you can catch us, and I guess you got to watch to the end.
If you wait like 5 minutes, we'll give you a whole breakdown on our offering.
4 minutes and 20 seconds. Okay.
All right.
So number 1, what are they? Are they the admiral? Are they the general? Are they the... I don't know what to call the bad guy in those shows. It's always like a guy with a big collar and pointy shoulders.
I'm thinking like the intelligence, because that works for anything that's helping you, and as like a sort of crazy enemy name. It's like, the intelligence is out here. And I think that it's fun because it's not necessarily negative or positive. They're just the intelligence.
Okay, so they are the intelligence. James has just brought up the thought of doing a stress mechanic where performing actions like failures build up stresses. The captain can never add a stress. The tech can remove a stress on a success. Everybody else would cause 1 stress. And you can only take a certain amount of stress before the mech shuts down, which I would assume would be, because of the way formatted the game, basically like missing a turn. Like, you have that scene where period. Things are too hot and a vent opens on the back and steam pours out like in a mech anime. I'm gonna pencil it down. We would definitely have to come up with it off stream. So, the intelligence. My only major question, do they roll a die? does the intelligence get to roll? Do they have 3d6 to determine whether or not whatever bad thing might happen happens, where they roll and those dice need to be within a number of each other? Or are they a more keeperly roll, where it's just like they describe the consequence of the failure?
I vote more keeperly.
Okay.
I think that they can take actions against you after each round or each turn, and then they do it.
So, for viewers now and in the future, here is our official recap. The game is called Resonance. It is a mech pilot one-page RPG where the goal is for a party of 2 to 5 mech pilots and 1 the Intelligence, which is the name of our GM. You just can't play with 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. The game gets harder the more players there are, but also a little bit more interesting because you get to use more of the abilities that can let you succeed. You describe what you want to do as you go through this adventure, breaching into combat, and then you would roll a die. So, on the captain's turn, the captain describes what they want everybody to do. Everybody nods. They briefly decide if they're going to use their powers or not, and then the captain rolls. They get their number, and then everybody else rolls. I just succeeded again. Mathematically, you shouldn't succeed a lot, but I'm looking at the numbers over here, and it keeps happening. And then they would get to burn their ability. The captain could make some of the lowest person re-roll. The gunner can turn 6s into wild cards. The medic can force a success, but reduce your chance of success on the next round. The tech can make 6 to 1 a success instead of a kind of dead zone. And the brawler, if they succeed on an action, gets to automatically attempt another action, and that can just sort of chain on. Which does tell me that probably, and the consequences of those following actions are lesser. They shouldn't be as bad as they are. So basically it's like consequence free. You get to try to do another cool thing, and if it fails, it fails, and that's not a big deal. You are just sort of narratively finding the moment where you determine if you succeed or not. I think that's great. And then we have 2 other big mechanics meant to keep players' heads in the game. Number 1, if you can choose what you do in a brief amount of time, 30 seconds per player basically, per player above 2, you can gain a bonus. You get advantage, right? You get to add another die that makes it a little bit easier to succeed. And if you manage to tie in your character's role, your success is 1 wider. So, to walk you briefly through a round of the game, the gunner, the medic would describe wanting to put out some... I assume that was a good thing. There was a very loud noise and nothing popped up on my screen. The medic would describe trying to put out the fires on the mech, and then they go, great. The captain rolls, they get a 2. The medic could then, the medic's the one that reacts. The tech says, I'm going to burn mine. A 6 to 1 is part of the success chain. Because of that 2, they want that open thing there. And then the brawler says, what the heck, this might work. I'll, take that fixed arm and punch if it succeeds. Everybody else rolls. We have 2 that succeed, 2 that fail. The medic goes, I'll burn my ability too. It turns into a success. The brawler goes, that means I get to try my dumb idea. The captain rolls again. The entire party goes, all right, whatever. They go for it again, and it is either a success or not. And that is this one-page RPG, and the first one we've ever done that is in desperate need of playtesting. And we have just run out of time. That's what the noise was. There was a really loud noise.
The timer?
It was the timer going off, of course. That's great. That means that the audience can hear the timer.
Good.
That's ideal.
Yeah. I'll have to put a timer on Twitch's stream also. And 2 things. Ian said, this sounds great, dudes. I agree. This does sound great. And they also had one question about podcasts. Do we have any other recommendations?
Podcast recommendation. First, we'll do our breakdown of our own options, and then I'll give mine.
And then I think we'll just each give whatever shows that you listen to that you really enjoy. So first of all, Thank you so much for watching DM Writer's Room. This is the stream where we demystify the DMing process by coming up with adventures, monsters, magic items, one-page RPGs, settings, and all kinds of fun stuff on stream. We just didn't feel like there was enough content out there that wasn't, here's my top 10 tips, and instead was, here, this is how I do it. These are the steps I go through. Watch us do it together and see what you think. What would you have done differently? What are your own ideas? We've also learned, I highly recommend you and a few of your friends that play TTRPGs together. This is a message to the people of the future. Do this with your friends every once in a while. I feel like all three of us have gotten a lot better at coming up with these ideas really fast by doing them as a unit and kind of building some of that skill. You can catch 3 streams that Foolhardy Press puts out on YouTube and Twitch. I almost said TikTok. On YouTube and Twitch. On Sundays, you can catch Game Masters, Masters of Games, where we play games that we feel we have already mastered or maybe attempting to master. These are, we played Baldur's Gate 3, we did Elden Ring for a while, we just did Marvel Rivals, we've been looking at a few other things. Super fun. That's 7:30, just like all of our shows. On Monday, you can catch The Party Makes Things Worse. That is our actual play show. I'm currently running us through a game in the D&D system called Song of the Reliquary. Our party is delving into an ancient ruin that is starting as an adventure into the desert and definitely won't take a huge turn into terrible, terrible horror as they continue down. I guess we'll see. And then, of course, on Tuesdays, you can catch DM Writer's Room, where we demystify the DMing process by coming up with things live. You can also catch us on TikTok for now, and YouTube. Spencer does a lot of really fun stuff in both of those places, coming up with all kinds of fun content. Give that a subscribe, see what you think, hit the bell. And you can check us out on Drive-Thru RPG, where our first adventure, The Lich's Dollhouse, is up, and itch.io, where the last Thanksgiving, our first one-page RPG is up, and where hopefully soon, this one will be up after we do a little play testing and make sure that everything is up and functioning. Woo! That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, James. James is a absolute devotee. You're the best man. So, things that we listen to. For me, my big one, Glass Cannon Network is one of my favorites right now. They're on YouTube and a couple of other places. Unfortunately, my favorite show of theirs is behind a paywall. It is Legacy of the Ancients, and it is behind their Patreon. But they're actually, I would recommend waiting a little while. They're about to end the campaign they're doing and start a new one. So if you want to start watching them, you might want to give it a minute. Or if you want to watch their old one, Giant Slayer, you've got a couple hundred episodes to dig through for that. What about you two? What are some of your favorites?
Michael?
I truly, I absolutely love the McElroy brothers family. I love Adventure Zone. And everything.
Banger.
Yeah, I love all the stuff that they come out with. It's very fun. It's always creative.
Yeah, one that they already wrapped that was pretty recent was the Adventure Zone versus Dracula. That one was really good. That was a really fun one. So that's worth it. And it's already done, which is nice because you can just sort of comb through and see what you think. I will say their seasons are really different from one to the other. So don't be afraid if you need to say this one's not for me, because some of them are not quite the same vibe. Spencer, what about you?
If you're looking for a channel that does content like this, there's a channel called an Indestructiboy who publishes solo work instead of doing it team-based, but it's very similar. Otherwise, podcast-wise, I love NADPod, Not Another D&D Podcast, and I do really enjoy Dungeons and Daddies. I've only listened to the first season, and the last one is Neo Scum. If you're looking for not D&D, Neo Scum's great. It's a Shadowrun podcast, and it's hilarious.
Huge disclaimer. That show is insane.
It's so fun, though.
But it is fun.
It has my favorite moment in all of tabletop role-playing game actual plays, though, which is, I'm going to say this and you're going to not know what I mean for 100 years. It's when Dak Rambo wakes up in his truck. It is one of my favorite moments in anything ever. That's Shadowrun. That's for the fun fact for you out there. Shadowrun, a TTRPG that Spencer has wanted to play for about 2,000 years. Unfortunately, the edition we bought him is universally reviled. The new edition is one of my favorite weird oddball facts about Shadowrun. There is this infamous joke that in Shadowrun, if you want to play a hacker or a caster Set your turn takes 3 hours. There's actually multiple stories in, I think, 2nd edition Shadowrun of the hacker starting their turn and everybody else literally being like, we're gonna go buy pizza, we'll be back, and the hacker doing the math on everything they need to do while they left.
Miserable.
You used to have to do the math if you wanted to make walls of force, how many walls you wanted to make, how many pounds of force each wall was able to hold, and you had to base the size on how much weight each one could hold. So you literally had to like do math to figure out where you wanted to put them.
Ian had a question. He said, "Wait, Shadowrun the podcast? Though? No, Neoscum is the podcast
Neoscum
title.
is the podcast.
Shadowrun
also-
is the system.
Yes. Also, Ian said that he runs a D&D podcast called Flipping Fate, which we will definitely have to check that out.
Whoop, whoop.
I'm looking it up.
Absolutely. So with that, I will say, we did our 1-page 1-shot 1 hour. Is this where
We
we
did
sign
good.
off? Is this where we head out? Are we bidding a fond farewell?
There
I
it
think
is.
that's it.
Fate, there you go. All right, cool. Well, in that case, thank you so much for watching, and we will catch you on the next one. Peace
All right.
out.
Bye.